Hi, good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for a few more people to arrive, so we'll just give it one more minute, and then I'll pass over to Clive. Clive, do you want to kick off? I think we'll have people joining as we go.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do so. What's the time? 11:02?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, if I kick off then, and obviously, hopefully we'll get a few more to join as we move through. So a warm welcome, everyone, to this BWA and Proof 8 webinar. Joining us today is Stuart Maxwell of Proof 8, who's going to be speaking about a subject which is close to the association's heart, and certainly part of our vision is that technology is the way forward. We can all agree or not or disagree in terms of what that actually looks like, but from my perspective, and it's been a long-standing view of mine, is that technology, certainly in our excise world, is going to drive compliance along with the training and education programs that we run. So Stuart, as you can see, hopefully you can all see from the webinar screen there, we'll be talking about obviously how technology can overcome warehousing complexity. I'm sure that will incorporate some aspects of compliance. But a warm welcome to you, Stuart. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yep, and just for a few housekeeping points before I do hand over to Stuart. Any questions? The plan is that Stuart to deliver obviously his presentation. Graham is on the chat, so if you've got any questions, plan is that we'll kind of collate those and then put those to Stuart at the end of his presentation. So please use the chat facility. Should you wish to raise a question, please feel free to do so. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Stuart. Morning.
Thanks, Clive. Yeah, cheers. All right. Hello, everyone. Morning, and thanks for joining me. Firstly, thanks to the BWA for asking me to speak today. I've been attending events with the BWA for the past year or so now, and it's great to be part of the community that Graham and Clive are building here. It's a really fun thing to be part of. So today we're going to talk about transparency, accountability, and resilience in whisky through the lens of warehousing and record keeping. Warehousing is where truth exists, where a cask is, what happened to it, who handled it, and what evidence backs that up. The challenge is that whisky supplies are long and event heavy, and over the years of maturation, you'll see movements, regauges, samples, repairs, re-racking, ownership changes, etc. If those events live in emails, spreadsheets, or systems are just simply not fit for purpose, they become hard to verify later. Put simply, better systems create better truth, and better truth reduces disputes, lowers operational costs, and makes fraud much harder to execute. And in tougher markets like we have just now, resilience comes from being able to prove reality quickly and consistently. As we go through the presentation, I'll explain the shift from using old systems and spreadsheets to modern technology and how this impacts warehouse keepers. That's the heart of modern compliance expectations these days, and the most practical way to protect everyone: warehouse keepers, distillers, brokers, and owners. Before I jump into the presentation in full, I'll give you a bit of introduction to myself if you haven't met me before. So I graduated from the University of Strathclyde in 2013 with an MSc in Pure and Applied Chemistry. I joined the William Grant & Sons graduate scheme that year and carried out a variety of different roles in the 3 years of that scheme. When I finished the graduate scheme, I moved into a technical role looking after raw materials. And then I moved into the maturation leader role, specifically focusing my research on maturation losses. I also spent about 5 years rotating around leadership roles in Spirit Supply at Girvan Distillery, which I'm sure most of you know is the largest distillery by volume in Scotland. I ran almost every team, the filling and emptying lines, the tank farm and the cooperage and wood management team, and I used our stock management system there extensively. I joined Proof 8 in January 2025 to help build out our product, and I'm delighted with the progress we've made in building a robust, extensive, and importantly, transparent product. I'm also heavily involved in the CIBD Scottish section, and I'm currently the vice chair of that section, which I'm really proud of. We run some great events there as well. So, jumping into things, why does transparency and accountability matter now more than ever? Because there's 3 pressures that have converged. Firstly, the market is cooled compared to recent peaks. When buyers become cautious, they ask for proof of existence, proof of location, proof of ownership, proof of history. In a slowdown, weak records get exposed because people try to sell. They are trying to finance or transfer assets, and suddenly the paperwork has to stand up. Secondly, the fraud signal is real. In 2023, there were 89 reports of to action fraud about alcohol investments, with losses totaling over £3 million. And I know most of you will obviously be aware of the BBC documentary that aired last year into this part of the industry. This isn't just a consumer issue, it becomes an industry trust issue when headlines don't distinguish between legitimate warehousing and misleading commercial claims. Thirdly, the regulatory landscape has moved as well. I'm sure everyone's aware of the WOGR change last year in March with the removal of owner registration. That change increases scrutiny on data quality and traceability, and it reduces the tolerance for we'll deal with it later. So today is about what you can do in practice, capture key events and make verification routine. If you can answer, is it real? Where is it? Who owns it? And what's happened to it? Quickly, you are more resilient in these difficult times. First and foremost, whiskey is a trust product and the industry is based on a sense of community, which is one of the things I love so much about it. Whiskey matures slowly, often out of sight, and value is created over years. That means owners depend on records and intermediaries, distilleries, brokers, warehouse keepers, transporters, and service providers to reflect reality accurately. This is where it's critical to separate custody from ownership. Warehouse keepers are custodians operating within duty suspension. They manage the physical and compliance environment. They are not the commercial guarantors of whatever has been promised in a marketing brochure. Now, if you add time over the course of decades, staff change, systems change, sites expand, casks move. The longer the timeline, the more valuable it becomes to have a clear event history that does not depend on memory. That includes movements, interventions, volume, strength changes, and any ownership transfers. So trust in practice is evidence, consistent identifiers, a defensible timeline, and records that multiple parties can verify without email archaeology. When you build that, you protect the owner, you protect the warehouse keeper, and you protect the reputation of the wider whisky industry. In reality, fraud and serious disputes usually exploit weak systems, not necessarily complex legal loopholes. The most common enablers are effectively quite boring. Inconsistent records, missing documents, unstandardized identifiers, and poor separation between custody and ownership. If a cask can't be independently verified, it becomes possible to oversell, misdescribe, delay transfers, or hide behind admin. Even without deliberate wrongdoing, informal processes like spreadsheets, PDFs, and email chains create the same vulnerability because they're hard to reconcile and easy to misinterpret. There's also a time gap problem. If events are recorded days or weeks after they happen, errors can creep in and corrections become opaque. That's why events-based logging really matters, because it captures the data at source with a user and attaches the supporting evidence. If you think about what a possible dispute can look like, someone asks where a cask is, what interventions occurred, and whether volume or strength changes are legitimate. If you can answer those quickly with a clear timeline, most disputes will resolve themselves. But if you can't, they escalate because people will just fill the gap with suspicion. So the goal isn't to treat everyone as a bad actor, it's to remove the ambiguity that bad actors thrive on and that honest operators suffer from. If you have a strong system, you can turn stories into facts and make fraud models much, much harder to sustain. Now, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of details in this because most of you will understand and will be fully aware of these changes, but for those who maybe aren't, in March 2025, the requirements for owners of warehouse goods to register under WOWGR was removed. From my own experience, WOWGR was very often discussed as if it regulated ownership, but in reality it didn't. But since the change, the HMRC position has been crystal clear. As warehouse keepers, you must know the owner of a cask at all times and have carried out the relevant due diligence on that person or have evidence that they are a fit and proper person. That shifts the centre of gravity away from an owner registration reference point and towards operational onboarding, documentation, and notification processes. In plain terms, it increases the importance of clear, standardised evidence of when ownership changes. If an intermediary, like a broker, sells a cask and the warehouse isn't properly notified with the right documents, the operational record can lag behind the commercial reality. And that mismatch is where disputes are born. And again, we saw that exposed in the documentary with the BBC last year. Explains why you as warehouse keepers may feel that you're carrying a lot more risks since this change. And I've certainly heard that in conversations with various warehouse keepers. You still have duties around control and record keeping, but you need to have confidence that the parties you deal with will maintain defensible documentation. So the takeaway isn't that there's more regulation fixes everything. The takeaway is that systems now lean more heavily on process and data quality. If the industry wants trust and it needs trust to basically survive, it needs consistent ownership transfer workflows and better transparency between the parties that buy, sell, store, and manage casks. Now, cask investment is a very controversial topic, and I'm not going to put opinions in either way about the rights and wrongs of it all. However, the simple reality is this: people will keep buying casks so long as firms and distillers exist to sell them. Cask investment as a consumer proposition doesn't have a single end-to-end mechanism that validates ownership in the way that many investors who buy casks imagine. There is some consumer protection, but there's no universal ownership register that an investor can query. Across the industry, you'll hear people refer to delivery order as if it was the legal title deed for a cask. That's a widespread belief, but technically it's not a statutory requirement anymore. So delivery order in practice, what is it now? So it's probably best thought of today as the industry standard method for notifying the bonded warehouse that ownership has changed. But the operational truth still lives within warehousing systems, documents, and notifications. In practice, warehouses often become the de facto source of truth because they hold the goods and the operational record. The risk is that expectations will rise faster than the standards that they would build within the industry. If parties use different identifiers, if transfers are notified inconsistently, or if documents are incomplete, the warehouse is pulled into resolving commercial disputes it didn't create. So the fix is not simply more paperwork, it's standardization, consistent cask identity, standard transfer notices with required supporting documents, and permission transparency so owners can verify key facts without generating chaos for warehouse teams. So this is where the pain lands effectively on warehouse keepers. When something goes wrong in the investment chain, warehouse teams get calls and emails. I know I've spoken to quite a large number of people who've had to go through that pain, certainly within the last 12 months. They're asked to confirm ownership. I've also heard people, investors turning up in the doorsteps of certain warehouse keepers, which is just absolutely crazy. You're then asked to confirm locations, confirm history, often with incomplete information because the sale may have happened through an intermediary who's gone bust, and the warehouse record may not have been updated cleanly. This creates reputational risk, both with the warehouse itself and with the wider industry. The public narrative often blurs custody and responsibility. The fact that it was in bond gets misheard as, well, someone safe's guaranteed it, which isn't fair, obviously, but it does happen. It also creates a vast amount of operational costs as well. Disputes generate admin work. You have to chase documents, reconcile paperwork, produce ad hoc reports, and search through historic files. That time comes straight out of core operational capacity, and it creates people risk. If the knowledge of historic movements and exceptions sits in one person's head, you have a single point of failure. So the objective is not to protect, the objective is to protect warehouse keepers with better data. When the record is complete, time-stamped and searchable easily, warehouses can answer reasonable questions quickly and refuse unreasonable demands confidently. Transparency reduces the number of disputes, auditability reduces the length and intensity of the disputes that do occur. Moving on very briefly to just talk about compliance as a whole, it used to be treated as periodic. Do a return, you've got audits coming up and then a scramble when someone asks for the detail. And that approach is just less and less viable these days. What modern compliance and commercial scrutiny expects is continuous traceability, a live, event-based record that shows what happened over time. That matters in whisky because casks don't sit still. Well, they might sit still for a long time, but eventually they'll move, they're sampled, they're re-gauged, and ownership changes. And static snapshots just don't describe reality. And retrospective reconstruction is risky because it depends on memory of staff members who may not even be working in the warehouse anymore, and because it's hard to prove that the reconstruction is accurate. So the practical shift is this: capture at source with a good system. The person who samples it logs it immediately. The person who moved the casks records the move at the time it happens. The person who updates the ownership attaches the documents and the due diligence and records the effective date in the warehouse acknowledgement. This isn't just about bureaucracy, although it might feel like it, but it's about reducing ambiguity. When your event log is complete, you can answer questions quickly, you can spot anomalies early, and you reduce the space where mistakes and fraud thrive. Compliance becomes a byproduct of good operations rather than just a periodic panic when an audit comes about. So what solutions are available to warehouse keepers? So the first one I'm going to talk about is blockchain. But before I do, I want to clear up a few common misconceptions about this particular technology. When people hear the word blockchain, they often think of cryptocurrencies. When I joined Proof 8, that's exactly what I thought. And I thought, well, what's this all about? But that's really not what we're talking about here. In this context, blockchain is simply a way of creating a digital twin of a physical asset, in this case, a whiskey cask. Think of a blockchain as like a shared digital logbook. Once something is written in it, it can't be changed or deleted, which makes it perfect for building trust in warehouse records. Each physical cask has a corresponding digital record, something we call internally a digital deed. And when something happens to that cask, say a transfer of ownership, a movement, a sample, or a regauge, an event is written to that digital record. And crucially, those events are time-stamped and can't be altered later. Obviously, if somebody makes a mistake, you can create a new record to rectify that. Why does this matter for warehouse keepers? Because it turns the warehouse role into one of just recording facts, not fixing disputes. The warehouse isn't saying who owns the cask commercially, it's simply confirming that on a certain date, a transfer was acknowledged based on certain documents. At Proof 8, we use this technology. This approach is already being used to give warehouse keepers a defensible audit trail. And if a dispute arises years later, the warehouse can point to the digital event history rather than reconstructing emails or relying on delivery orders. The value is quite simple. The physical cask stays where it is, but the truth about it becomes permanent, shared, and provable. That significantly reduces the dispute exposure and protects the warehouse keeper from being caught in the middle. And to top this off, our technology that we use in our system has made the top 3 of the Distilled Spirits Council of the US Innovation Award for 2026. We're in the top 3, and we find out if we've won that award in March at the conference. So beyond blockchain, bonded warehouse whiskey warehouses are increasingly adopting other high-tech solutions to meet rising regulatory expectation, reducing fraud risk, and improving traceability. Internet of Things sensors and RFID tracking are transforming warehouses into connected data-driven environments. Each cask can be tagged and monitored in real time, allowing movements, location, and conditions to be captured automatically. I've seen one company who will put sensors in your warehouse and they can talk to a certain system, which can then give you the location of the cask. If there's a leak, it can actually pinpoint the exact cask in that warehouse and its location, which allows the operator to take action quickly. This is particularly useful if you have, say, really valuable stock in a particular location. There's quite a large number of companies that are using technology like this, like Jim Beam. Well, Beams, I was going to say Beam Suntory, but technically it's now just Suntory Spirits. And they've shown how tagging millions of barrels creates a single consolidated view of inventory across production and storage. And this approach dramatically reduces manual handling, human error, and reliance on spreadsheets. Warehouse teams can instantly locate casks, identify discrepancies early, and avoid costly miscounts or excise issues, which saves you both time and money. Other companies are using AI analytics. Most companies are using some form of AI these days, and that adds a further layer of protection and efficiency. By analysing data from sensors and digital records, AI tools can detect anomalies and may indicate fraud, loss, or quality issues, such as unexpected volume changes. These systems act as continuous automated auditors, flagging risks early rather than after the fact. At the same time, AI insights can be used operationally to predict maintenance needs, optimize environmental controls, and improve overall warehouse resilience. Finally, integrated ERP platforms and secure data sharing bring a lot of these technologies together. There's quite a large variety of different ERP systems out there these days. We have lots of all-in-one solutions. We've got lots of ones that integrate with other like finance and HR ERP platforms as well. And a lot of modern bonded warehouse systems link inventory directly to customs reporting, financial packages, etc. Collectively, these connected warehouse tools do improve efficiency, strengthen compliance, and create a more resilient whiskey supply chain. Looking at one case study that we have in particular at the Foundry Vault, digital transformation here has been pivotal in building resilience within that business. Before adopting Proof8 as a system, their team managed cask data manually in spreadsheets, which became untenable as operations scaled. And with Proof8, they now have full transparency and traceability over every cask from arrival to departure. Each barrel receives a secure digital deed and a QR code, which links the two together, or links the physical to the digital, and so ownership and provenance are verifiable in real time. Once ownership is transferred, the cask owner can see their cask in a digital wallet, and the warehouse can even upload a picture of it if they wish. The broker is unable to transfer ownership of that cask to anyone else in the system once it's been transferred to the end owner, and the warehouse keeper receives an email notification that the transfer has taken place, which allows them to interrogate the due diligence the broker should have uploaded about that new owner. This provides really strong protection both to the warehouse keeper at Foundry Vault and the end owner. Our system tracks thousands of casks over over 22 companies, which allows the small team there to handle thousands of ownership transfers with ease. And this operational efficiency frees staff to focus on growth instead of firefighting and resolving disputes of ownership. The platform proved its strength during its lengthy HMRC audit last year, when the Foundry Vault was effectively used as a benchmark for third-party maturation. And because the records were immutable and transparent, they passed scrutiny and demonstrated what good looks like for the industry. The resilience isn't just about surviving audits, it's about building a scalable, trusted platform that can support future expansions across Northern Ireland and beyond. And the Foundry Vault's journey shows that digital systems not only meet compliance, but also empower operators to plan for the future with confidence. Now, just talking about systems in a general sense before I get to the summary. What we mean here are controls that make reality easy to verify and hard to fake. Start with identity. One cask should have one digital identity which is used consistently between parties. If identifiers will change between broker, warehouse, and owner, reconciliation can become guesswork. And ownership should have a clean chain. Transfers should be recorded as events with documents attached, and a record of when the warehouse was notified and accepted the update. Movements and interventions must be logged, because disputes usually hinge on those details. And they also explain legitimate changes in volume and strength over time. And finally, accountability. Systems should keep an audit trail that can't be quietly altered. Corrections are normal, but corrections should be visible and attributable. If you implement these basics, you reduce the opportunity for double selling, you shorten the dispute resolution, and you protect good operators from becoming associated with bad actors. The goal is deliberately boring. Make verification routine and fast, and when verification routine, fraud becomes expensive and risky, and honest operators can scale. So to summarize, the whisky industry has always been built on community and trust, but trust today needs to be supported by evidence, not assumption. The recent cask investment failures have shown that fraud typically exploits weak systems, unclear records, and gaps in accountability, rather than some form of sophisticated criminal behaviour. And at the same time, expectations have increased, particularly around record keeping, traceability, and due diligence. And you need to have evidence of how the data is created and maintained. And while warehouse keepers are heavily regulated, the cask investment space itself remains fairly lightly regulated, which means risk often shifts onto operators who are expected to act as a source of truth. And in that environment, transparency becomes pivotal rather than a burden. So that's all I've got today. Thanks for your time. If you'd like to learn any more about Proof 8, you can contact me in the email there, or you can go to our website. I'll also be speaking at the BWA Members Forum in London in March, and if you're going, I'd love to connect with you there. But thanks very much for your time, and I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Stuart. Graham, do you want to just check the chat box for Stuart to see if there's anything that's been raised?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a question from Ronnie Reed, and in fact, I think Ronnie's still with us, so I might unmute him so he can ask his questions. So you should be able to speak now, Ronnie.
I can see the question as well. If
Can you hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you, Ronnie.
Hi, Stuart. Yeah, I'm just asking a general point here. The one that frustrates me the most about having to deal with this, particularly in the last year. I just wondered what links and if you've got any leverage with the cask investment companies or contacts with them, because we've got many casks belonging to them, who they're the records that we have as the owner of those casks. But we and you know that there's someone out there who's paid a lot of money for them, and we've got no way of finding out, who that is. And I just wondered if, with your system and your, basically the weight of expectation that you've got as one of these software providers, can you go to these people and say, look, we're trusted. Can you transfer the information to the warehouse keeper of who actually owns them, and then we've got a proper record rather than just what we've got right now? Yeah.
So the way it works is this. So if a broker approaches us and they've got casks in a warehouse that don't have Proof 8, we don't allow them to have the system. The way that we work is when a warehouse comes on board and the broker has casks on that in that warehouse, we offer a broker's only view of the platform where they can log in and they can see the casks that they own, or see casks that they were listed as the broker of. We call it managing agent. It's slightly probably more professional term, I would say. And then they on that part of the platform, they can see the stock, and if they're the owner, they can transfer the ownership to the end owner. And they really like that because it then gives them legitimacy, because they can say to the end owner, look, you'll get a digital deed, you log into this website, you can see your cask, you're the sole owner, there's only one of these, and it's yours. And then what happens then is the broker cannot transfer that ownership back. So that really protects the end owner, because there's no way for them to be able to the only people that can transfer the ownership back is the end owner themselves or the warehouse. And the warehouse has to have some form of notification that ownership transfer is going to take place. So we have big leverage there, and there are quite a few firms that have signed up with us where they have stock in some of our customers' warehouses, and there's a good mutual benefit there where the broker can say, look, we can issue you as an investor this digital deed, and it's well protected. The warehouse keeper sees who the owner is at all times, and if there is any ownership changes, like for example, if the broker owns the cask and they sell it, the warehouse gets a notification. They can see who the end owner is, and the broker can upload due diligence documentation to show that that person is a fit and proper person to own that cask. So it's where part of our USP sits. It's that strength in the ownership chain is realistically what we're trying to help support, because warehouse keepers are really exposed. You've mentioned it in your question. Like, if you don't know who the owner is, the HMRC position is that you should have due diligence to hand to show who that owner is. We've heard that. I heard that at the forum last year, and I've heard that subsequently since that's the HMRC position. So our system helps with that. And
are we going to have to be a Proof8 user then to get access? If say that the cask investment companies is one of your customers, would we have to have Proof8 to
because they can't see their stock if you as a warehouse don't have Proof8, so there's no way for them to log in and see it. So they have to. If you guys have Proof8, you can say to all the people, all the cask investment firms that hold stock on your site, look, we have this system. We can give you a broker's version of the platform. You can log in, see your stock. If you own the cask, you can transfer it. If you don't, you can see who the owner is, and we can see the documentation. But we don't really want to be in a position where if we don't want to give brokers the access to the platform, if they don't have the warehouse as the record keeper, the holder, because they're the people they're ultimately in physical control of the asset. They're the ones doing the samples, the regauges and the movements, and ultimately they should be the custodian of that data. Effectively, all the broker's doing is storing the cask in that warehouse, and that's an important distinction.
How flexible is Proof8 interacting? You talked about ERP systems. I mean, we're obviously, as you know, locked into Tropos. Is that one that you can realistically have a linkage with?
I mean, ultimately, we would probably replace that because our system covers a lot of operational needs. Our integrations tend to be with things like financial packages or other CRMs, not necessarily with other operational ERP platforms. So I mean, we're quite open, quite flexible. Love to chat a bit further about it, but what the reality is. But ultimately, our integrations are with things that we're not experts in, like finance and HR. Our expertise lies in the operational space.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's something we can maybe discuss in future.
Yeah, super.
Thanks, Stuart.
No worries.
And any other questions, Graham?
Not in the chat. I do have one here, which has come in, and it's just a general. What are the common pitfalls to watch out for when implementing a new technology?
Well, I can answer that specifically when it comes to adopting like a new system. The number one pitfall that we come across is how good is your data? So more often than not, when people have a system for a very, very long time, there's lots of little fixes or workarounds that people add in, and the data isn't maybe very clean, if we call it that. And then when it comes to moving to a new system, they go, oh, actually, I should probably clean up this data, and I should probably make changes. And the quality of the data that we get sometimes can be difficult to deal with. For example, if you've got liquid types and one of it's called Auchentoshan 10 and one of it's called Auchentoshan 12, well, that's, you've got basically the same liquid type there. So, or you've got more frequently if you've got cask types where one cask is called bourbon, another one's called BB1, another one's called first fill bourbon. They're all effectively the same thing, but you've got like 3 different records of that cask type. So the difficulty is cleaning up that data to make the migration to a new system more effective, and that is typically where it takes a bit of time. It's one of those things where it's quite a bit of effort to get there, but it's really, really worthwhile. I often describe it to people as that this is your effort level here just now. This is kind of where you need to go to when we adopt a new system, but it's going to be here. So it's like that curve. You just need to get over that hump. When you clean up the data, adopt a new system, learn how it works, but eventually you're going to be in a position in the longer term where you'll have a benefit and you'll realize your efficiencies quite soon.
That's great. Thank you very much. And is there anything that that people should look out for? I mean, what are the most important things to look out for in a kind of a technology provider if they're deciding to get a new system?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have a slight bias, right? But ultimately, you have to find a system that works for you. Some of the people we speak to, they just need something that's extremely simple, and that's what works well for them. And they only need to do a few things. That's absolutely fine. Others need a full-blown ERP, or they want a full-blown ERP that can deal with finance, HR, and operations just all in one go, and that's fine as well. It's really just about shopping around and seeing what's right for you in a way. When I started in the industry in 2013, there was only effectively maybe 1 or 2 options max. Certainly is, again, naively, it's a more competitive landscape than I had initially anticipated when I joined. But that's good. The competition's good. Competition drives innovation, it drives competitiveness. It's good for warehouse keepers. So, my encouragement is to look carefully at the options that are out there, and do have conversations with people, do have demos, and just ultimately see what works best for you in your circumstances.
All right, thank you very much. Ronnie's just jumped in with another question. Do you want to do that one, Ronnie? I think you're still unmuted.
Pretty straightforward. It's just does Proof 8 work for empty casks, i.e. the ownership of the cask type, number of fills, history, of what was in the cask.
Yeah.
Because increasingly that's becoming important. We've had a few issues recently with a customer more or less just abandoning casks, and we were utterly astonished because some of these are great casks, worth quite a lot of money, and yet they didn't seem to have any control over them, or they just abandoned them.
Yeah, so the short answer to that question is yes. The longer answer is when a cask comes into the system and we apply a QR code to that cask, that QR code stays with the cask for its entire lifespan. So no matter how many times you fill it, you've always got that history. The asset name is effectively the name of the cask itself, not the liquid that's in it. That's quite often a difficult conversation for people when I talk to them and are used to using like a legacy system that doesn't deal with empty casks, and they have to then pivot their thinking a little bit where the asset ID that you can still see on the screen there, that's the name of the cask, and that's what sits with the cask for its entire lifespan. And when you scan that QR code, you get that full history. So it's a bit of a pivot, but I would have loved to have had something like that in my old job when I was looking at maturation losses, because trying to track cask history over time, how a cask is performed and so on and so forth, that was really, really difficult. With our system, it's much more achievable.
Yeah, even the knowledge of where a cask has been. Sometimes you see casks just sitting outside in the hot summer sun, and then you wonder, well, how long have they been there when they're at the bottom of a huge stow? And you think that can't be good for the cask. And it's also, it's quite good knowledge just to get things turning over as well, which is something I've long thought that.
Yeah, normally you can find out if a cask has been sitting outside in the hot summer sun for a long time because you can fit a pound coin between the staves. But yeah, no, you're right. And again, going back to my research days, that was one factor that I really wanted to dig into, and it was very, very difficult. Like the length of time a cask spends outside, the weather conditions, what impacts that have on the condition of the cask, where it is sitting in a stow. Are pyramids better than stacked pallets? These are all questions that with a bit of time and better systems, I could have maybe gone into, but yeah, it's a really fascinating area that
Yeah, it's something that
sure
would
more
be
people will tackle.
a big positive. Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, Stuart. Okay, Clive, you still here?
Yes, I'm still with you.
Okay.
So I think that was really good. I think simple kind of concept, Stuart, and traceability, the full audit trail. We see a lot of that across our other types of excise warehouses, across the other alcohol types. But I think food for thought. Some great insights as well from yourself. Some great questions from Ronnie. So hopefully that's given people food for thought, as I say, and some takeaways to consider just how they conform and improve their traceability and auditability of what is a valuable asset. Stuart.
Yeah, no, indeed. No, again, thanks very much for having me. It's been good to do this, and yeah, if anyone on the call is coming down to the forum in March, I'll see you there and look forward to connecting. But in the meantime, if there's anyone got any questions, I think these slides are going to be shared after the call. My LinkedIn is in the second slide, and my email address is in the last slide. So please do get in touch if you want to hear any more about what we're up to.
Great. It'd be good to see you at the forum, and as many others as on the call that can make it. It'd be good to see them as well.
Super. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Stuart, and thanks for everybody for attending. If there's no other questions, we're almost on time, which is great. So have a great rest of the day, and thank you for attending. We'll see you soon.
Cheers now.
Thank you very much.